Hey guys, it's Mandy as by our Craft Vanguard deck profiles. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we're covering another DC set 10 deck, this time being the one I waited for the most and am half excited for and half disappointed by. The anime episode didn't disappoint though, and that is Drajeweled Magnus. I specify Magnus because this deck does not run Ignis as a finisher or as a build-up from Magnus, so if you're expecting Ignis to be in this build or want ideas of how to run Ignis in this build, skip off this video and go to the version that does actually have Ignis in it and is based around Ignis, hopefully linked somewhere on screen right now. But continuing on with this build focused on Magnus, as the name implies, we're trying to focus down on this new grade 3 that's an upgraded form of OG Drajeweled to instigate the new return of Michiru and see how the deck works. So let's get the starter and see what we got, because honestly, it's pretty interesting. First today, we have our energy generator. It's our ride deck crest. You may ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you ride, put this card to your crest zone. Even when second, you get to energy charge 3. Continues to make 10 energy, auto begin ride phase, energy charge 3, and then act once per turn, energy plus 7, draw a card. On pretty solid, you get a free 3 energy every turn. If you win second, you get extra 3 on top of that, and you get energy plus 7 if you have more than all of it at once to draw a card. Arm pretty solid. You will never use that energy plus 7 skill though. I mean, there are times where you will use it because you bricked, but you most likely won't because a lot of your cards do end up using energy, but on the bright side, a lot of those cards end up using the energy to draw or get you a rear guard, so essentially it's getting you a energy plus 7 draw card skill for half the cost literally, so one of us our red deck crest. Moving on, we have our starter in Julius Draco Glow. So grade 0 boots 5k, shows this K base, auto roll 5 second draw card, standard starter, not about to free draw if you go second. So Drajeweled isn't the only one who got an upgrade. His whole ride line got an upgrade in this series as well, which I think is really cool and really well deserved for his ride line, although I'm like 50-50 on half of their effects, but obviously I'm going to run the new ride line to showcase it. Moving on, we have our Overtrigger in Hades Dragon, Deity of Resentment, Gailor grade 0 boost 50k shield, 5k power, Overtrigger, Overtrigger in your deck, or good as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose enemies, get plus 1 million for the turn, and if you did a check, activate its adjust effect, would you the player get during your turn. All your vanguards get 10,000 power and plus 1 critical to the end of this fight, making your Drajeweled base, let's assume you pull while you're on Magnus for the sake of making this easier to talk about. Let's just say on Magnus you pull this offensively, your base power will always be 23 and double critical during your turn, meaning your opponent will always pretty much have to PG because your Vanguard will have somewhere between 2 and 3 crits guaranteed. All around, it's a pretty solid Overtrigger to have. You can run Asphoria for recycling and additional crit pressure, or Volna for consistent multi-attacking. Volna has more lethal potential. I prefer Gailor though, A, because I like running the Nation Overtriggers, but B, from a logical standpoint and not just personal preference, I do like having the ability to constantly have that offensive pressure, where Volna ends its offensive pressure at the end of the turn, which can also be countered back by your opponent pulling the over. Gailor, I mean, yeah, if your opponent pulls the over, they're safe for the rest of the turn, but for the following turns, you always have that 10k in crit pressure, so I like having Gailor for that. Plus, Drajeweled is always going to be the weakest of your numbers guaranteed, so I like having Gailor for backup. Moving on, we have our normal triggers, 3 of them being Rouse while Master Riley, grade 0 boost 5k shield, 4k base, continues guard circle, every opponent's Vanguard to grade 3 regret at 5,000 shield, so she's a 10k shield and she's a drawer trigger, so she helps increase the hand. I would recommend you use front triggers instead because A, draw triggers can deck you out very easily if you're not careful, but B, the front triggers add like more additional numbers to Drajeweled, especially on turns where maybe you really whiffed hard and you can't use your Drajeweled skill, or on turns that you do use your Drajeweled skill and it helps sustain lethal power, but Riley helps the deck stay a little bit more defensive and increase hand cards and hopefully pulls into its supportive pieces. I still recommend the fronts though, and specifically Natalie. The reason why I don't run fronts is because I don't like to run archetypal triggers in other decks or like mixed archetypes, and you know, Natalie's obviously a Diabolos girl, and the only other front I would warrant running would be the effect front, but I don't really like the other effect front, the one that goes to soul, in the sense that it doesn't really need to be used for Drajeweled, so 3 of Riley. Moving on, we have 8 crits, 4 of them being Lively Breath Dragon, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base. You make this any crit you want just to make it Lively Breath because it fits Drajeweld's theme. Followed by 4 Stem Deviate Dragon, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, boost to shove to soul, choosing you to give it 2k for the turn. More likely than not, you will never need to use that skill because Drajeweled Magnus can yeet any 2 cards from drop zone to soul, so you can just send any trigger from your drop zone or any grade 0 from your drop zone back into your soul instead of adding Steam Deviate via its own skill, but it's nice for additional pressure, and you can make this a vanilla crit if you want to. I just like having it in here because what if in case you do need to send it to soul, and also because having it as a 4k on rear guard could actually be the difference between guarding and your opponent living. Then we have 4k per companion, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k base. You can make this any heal you want. I don't know why this was Michiru's heal. I mean, I kind of get it in terms of like his personality. I just feel it doesn't make sense because his critical trigger canonically was the Succubus unit, and then he has this really upbeat heal. And while, yes, those are technically like paired cards, so I would be running them together, I've never made that connection in my head just because it doesn't feel like it. So 4 of Caper Companion. I do run a Caper Companion because it is Michiru's heal, but still. Moving on to our grade 1s, 3 of insert tech option here, Brainwash Swirl, grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear guard when it's placed on rear guard circle, soul charge 1. It's a mandatory soul charge, so it can deck you out, and then auto rear guard when a card is put into your soul by soul charge. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater, it has 5,000 power for the turn. Geo Draw can help in soul charge, itself can help in soul charge, so it's getting decent numbers, somewhere between 5 and 10 10k more or less every single turn, because you're probably playing one, if not both of them every single turn. And it's a nice card to put behind the Vanguard. Realistically, if you're playing a smarter version of this deck, play Bifrons in the slot and up it to 4. I don't do that because, as I specified before, I don't like to run archetypal cards outside of their archetypes, and I don't like using cards I can't use the full ability of. For those of you that don't know what Bifrons does, the first ability is on play CB1, check the top 3, put 1 to hand, put 1 to soul, put the other to drop, and then the last skill requires you to specifically be on either an Astro Ea or a Mask unit, or is it Evil? I think it's one of the two, because I know sometimes Evil and Astro share the same support. Either way, point is that this deck cannot use Bifrons to its fullest ability, so I don't like running Bifrons. Though my personal build, as you've seen on my videos, I do run Bifrons because in those builds I don't care. So 3 of Brainwash Swirler, good for soul charging, good for power. This can be any generic slot you want though, because honestly a deck that doesn't do a lot of soul charging is not the greatest, but it's not the worst thing in the world, and it's nice putting it behind the Vanguard, who again is always going to be the weakest. Moving on, we have 3 of Compositive Freaks. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, AK base, continues guard circle. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard, Drajeweled, and the Carnage gets 5k shield. I like how right after I complain about that 5k shield skill never coming in useful, it is the reason that I won a game with Magnus, so I'll take it. And then act drop zone, if your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard to Drajeweled, bind it to choose a grade 3 guard card from the drop zone, put it to soul. So sometimes the thing that you struggle with getting into soul or grade 3, specifically Drajeweled, which you want to use for Magnus skill to get the front row 5k, and because this ability can proc off regardless of grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, you can use it to help bully down your opponent's grade 2 Vanguard, or just use Magnus to get any other remaining cards that you need in your drop zone into your soul, and then use Compositive Freaks to bind it to put a grade 3 into your soul. That way you always have that reoccurring value. All around, very solid grade one I have. I do actually like having it. A lot of the times I do forget Compositive Freaks exists, but the times I do remember him, he's the reason I win games, so 3 of him. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Illusionary Lantern Demonic Lady Rockagore. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, AK base. Okay, obviously I love the moon in the background, and if you guys don't remember, this is one of the cards I immediately collected with, which is rare, so I really love having this card in any deck I can put her in, especially if it's at 4. So auto, she's placed on rear guard circle from the hand, energy charge 1. Unfortunately, she doesn't have to be placed from hand, so she doesn't proc off via Geo Draw, but still if you place her from hand, she's a free energy charge. And then auto rear guard, and about that she boosted. If you energy blast with 3 more at the same time for the cost of your card's ability this turn, whether it's your energy generator or Geo Draw or Lizrogu, you can retire her to draw a card. All around pretty solid, because if you don't want to deck yourself out because maybe you're afraid that draw will deck you out, since it's a cost attached to it, you don't have to retire her, and that way you keep your board presence. Or if you want to add that extra card to your hand for defense value, you can retire Rockagore and draw. All around pretty solid. She gets you energies by being placed from hand, so you can early aggro with her on turn 1 to help bully down your opponent and put them to higher damage to put Drajeweled in lethal range the second you hit Drajeweled, but also she gets you defensive power if you need her to, if your opponent doesn't kill her, so very easy for me. Then we have our PG and Repelled Malice Dragon. Grade 1 boost 0 silk 6k base, continues to have 4 sentinels and deck, and also put on guard circle. Choose one of your units and cannot be hits in the battle. If your hand stream or cards, choose a card from hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing to specify, because it means if this is only one of the cards in your hand plus on guard circle, you don't have to discard great, because that means be super aggressive in the early game, basically spam Rockagore, maybe spam Brainwash Swirler, and then when your opponent does eventually counteract, you throw down a Repelled Malice, give them the middle finger, you're good to go. All very solid PG to have. You can make this Riskill Hate Dragon, or the new one whose name eludes me at this moment. You can, or Ridicule Disruptor. I choose to make it Repelled Malice though, because it does fit Drajewed's theme, and it came out closer to the time of OG Drajeweld's release, so I might as well run it with the new Drajeweld. As for our last grade one of the right hand of the main deck of Jewel Core Dragon Glinto. So grade 1 boost 5k shield, AK base. I love Glint's wings here. He looks awesome. So all of them wrote upon by Demonic Stone Dragon Julio Luster. Check the top 5 to up to 2 cards with different grades among them. Put them to your soul shuffle your deck. So my one issue with the OG ride line is that it was really hard to get a grade 3 into soul, because you would always get like obviously the ride line, grade 0, grade 1, grade 2 would obviously be in the soul, but it was always hard to get the grade 3 in soul for OG Drajeweld to actually use its skill on first grade 3 turn. Glint pretty much guarantees it, or doesn't guarantee it, but increases your odds. And not to mention the fact that it can get extra cards into soul. The only downside is like the cards that add have to be different grades, so you can't add 2 grade 2s, which sucks because a lot of the time I flip 3 to 4 grade 2s off of Glint, which is kind of annoying, but I digress from that point. But it's a great way to get grade 3s into soul. If you need 2 or extra grade 0s, because typically before you're banking on Jewel Neal's free soul charge or literally any other random soul charge from Dark State, so pretty much left it up to RNG if you're going to pull up Drajewed's skill or not. So Glint helps increase the odd, though I do miss the fact that Glint could superior call itself and then acts as early aggro, but you know what, I'll take what I can get. I do like it as one of the cards though, where I genuinely am a 50-50 on if I like it more than the OG or not, but I like them both enough to where I could see the deck working with either or. One of Glint though for the top 5 search. Then we have our grade 2s, 2 of Master of the Veiled Wings Vespa. Grade 2 instead of 5k shield, 10k base. He's here solely to show off new cards, like that's the only reason this here. Make this whatever the hell you want. Auto place on Vanguard circle, shove a hand card, soul, draw a card. If your Vanguards are grade 3, go to Drajeweled, it gets 5,000 power for the turn. So it's a 15k, but you also pretty much can play on grade 2 turn to get an extra card into soul to increase hand. So this is your way to cheat a Drajeweled into soul and then proc Magnus skill off the following turn or in that same attack phase just to get the front row 5k. Not a bad grade 2. You get your soul card for free. I wish he just gave you like an actual soul charge and then maybe pulled like a Chahiro where he then takes a card from soul, adds to hit the hand, and then sends a card from hand to soul. That would be incredibly broken for a rare, but I'm just saying. 2 of, again, make this whatever you want. He's mainly here just to showcase new cards. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Demonic Stone Dragon and Rockagore. I really genuinely thought this deck would have a CB problem, considering that I run both this and Lizarogug at 4. For some reason, it doesn't, which I guess is because Magnus no longer costs CB, which I mean, fair enough. So grade 2 instead of 5k shield, 10k base on Rockagore. Auto rearguard once per turn when these 2 attacks a grade 3 or greater unit. If your soul has 4 more different grades in it, gets 10,000 power for the turn, so 20k swing, which it swings into a grade 3. And auto rearguard when you soul blast 4 more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability. Doesn't specifically have to be Drajeweled, but every card that does soul blast 4 more at the same time for a card ability involves standing units, so it doesn't really matter. If your opposing Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater CB1 standard, you can only use it if you soul blast 4 more at the same time, not collectively. All around, very solid skill. You know, it swings for 20k and basically 20k onwards once it swings the first time when you have 4 more different souls. If you want to spend a CB when you soul blast 4 more, you can stand it, which works really well with Magnus skill to drop opponent's power down to 0. So you can bully them down with bigger numbers on the first attack by boosting, and then on the second attack you don't boost because you're already at previous numbers over your opponent's 0. Very solid grade 2 to have in the deck. You can choose to run it or you could choose not to run it because it's basically a worse version of Lizarogug, because Lizarogug is just the evolution of Rockagore. However, I like having it as basically an extra Lizarogug since they share almost the exact same skill verbatim with very small differences. Like, this skill is literally the same verbatim, and this is changed by one single wording, which makes the difference. But anyways, 4 of Rockagore adds Lizarogug as basically an extra copy, not to mention the fact that, again, it allows you to do like double restamp more consistently, and the deck doesn't really run into a CB problem. If you're paying attention so far, there's no cards in the deck that cost CB, and I'll give you even more of a hint. The only cards that cost CB in the deck are this, and lo and behold, Demonic Stone Dragon Lizarogug. So grade 2 instead of 5k shield, 10k base. Auto and placed on rearguard circle. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard which are Drajeweled in the card name, as you blast through to draw a card, it can be placed by any means, whether it's from hand, from deck, from soul, from drop zone, whatever, or whether it's just hard called or superior called. You can energy blast through draw, which you get that 3 energy every turn, so pretty solid. And then auto rearguard once per turn. So this ability stays the exact same from Rockagore, where when it attacks a grade 3 or greater unit specifically, if your soul has 4 more different grades, it gets 10,000 power for the turn. The second ability is almost the exact same. However, it does have one key difference. Auto rearguard. When you soul blast 4 more cards at the same time for the cost of your ability with Drajeweled in the card name, counterblast 1 and stand it. The specifications are different because Rockagore requires the opponent to be at grade 3, but you could soul blast it with any Vanguard. Lizarogug requires you to be on a Drajeweled, but it doesn't require the opponent to be at grade 3, meaning while it won't get the 10k while your opponent's at grade 2, it can multi-attack a grade 2 Vanguard, so you can get 4 to 5 attacks depending on what your front row looks like, all while your opponent's at grade 2, albeit without the crit pressure. Honestly, Lizarogug is a very solid grade 2. It gets you hand cards by being placed. It's basically Rockagore, but a little bit more consistent. And, you know, if you do want to run Rockagore alongside it, you got 2 different ways to get front row consistent restand. So that way you can shift from more defensive consistency plays to full out aggro plays that possibly kill your opponent. And I'll forever be mad about that because on camera twice, right at the first time I didn't think about it, but after editing it, I realized it. But then the second time I actively realized it and I chose not to do it anyways, where if I had chosen to go on a 5 attack aggro, I would have won, and the only reason I didn't is because I have PTSD from watching Michiru lose to Jinky only because he went for that aggro play. So I digress from that point. 4 of Lizarogug, really great for hand cards, really good for numbers, really good for multi-attacking. Moving on, we have our last grade 2 in the deck, one of the red and none of the main deck of Demonic Stone Dragon, Julio Luster. So where I loved Glint to where I could take Glint or OG Jewel Core and I'll be happy with either or, I hate Luster so much, and the only reason I run Luster is because you need Luster to pull off Glint's skill. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto and road upon by a grade 3 card Drajeweled in the card name, soul charge 1, and if your soul has Jewel Core Dragon Glint in it, you draw. So OG allowed you to the exact same skill, except you did not require Jewel Core and Soul, and to even be more specific, as long as you had 3 more different grades, which you always would, you would have the grade 1 more likely than not Jewel Core, grade 0, which could be any starter, and then itself, because it would already be in Soul when you activate the skill, you would get the draw. So, I mean, it's fine that it requires a Glint, that's not the problem. The problem is the second skill. Continues rearguard during turn. Vanguard is specifically Demonic Jewel Dragon Emperor, Drajeweled Magnus. I'll give him this. This is the first time in a while we've seen a very name-specific support card. This card gets 5,000 power. Okay. It's not bad, and it does give you a superior call target in case you don't have any better card in your soul for Geo Draw. But why couldn't they just keep the on-hit soul charge? Because that gave you more consistency that the old one had to try to get more grade 3s into soul, and it gave the Vanguard on-hit pressure. Now the opponent doesn't have to guard this if they don't want to, but before, they kind of wanted to guard it, or, you know, just not just for the reason they're not going to higher damage, so that you don't get more grades in soul. I don't like Luster. Luster feels so bad to me. They butchered this, where they buffed Glint for the deck in general, but could still make it so you could run OG Jewel Core. They made it basically useless outside of this variant because you have to run Luster, and Luster is definitely a worse version of Jewel now, in my opinion, but whatever. One of in the right deck, none in the main deck. Moving on, we have our grade 3s. 3 copies of... I wanted to make it so that the deck had consistent ways of putting grade 3s in soul, and this is one of my favorite Drajeweled support cards by a long shot, so I just put it in here. Demonic Jewel Dragon Restall Gailor. Grade 3 jumpers are 30k base. Are those spears? Does he have spears attached? Is he a wyvern? I always thought Restall Gailor was like a full, like, 4-legged dragon, not like Drajeweled where it's a wyvern technically. Is it a wyvern? Is it? I want a full art of Restall Gailor now because I want to see this. Anyways, auto rearguard when it attacks into a Vanguard. If you soul blast 4 more cards at the same time, the cost of your Vanguard's ability this turn doesn't have to be specifically Drajeweled, but more likely than not will be. Put a hand card to soul to draw a card and kill one of your opponent's rearguards. So honestly, pretty solid. It mercs off your opponent's rearguards. It gets you extra soul cards, so that way it replaces the cards you just soul blasted. The only downside is that it has to attack into a Vanguard, and always remember to Restall Gailor from Michiru's match with Megumi, where he purposely damage starved her. And I wish Restall Gailor could do that too, where you could swing it to anything and it could kill a rearguard, but killing 2 rear guards for a hand card to draw is not bad at all. In fact, that's really good. So fair enough that it has to attack into Vanguard for it. It's good though the fact that it can get you any card from hand to soul, so that way it sets you up for 12 Magnus next turn essentially. Say for example your soul is 0 and you have a Persona right in hand and any 2 cards in drop zone. Well, Magnus inherently on your next turn, if you get to, is going to get you 2 cards of soul. Then you Persona ride, and then Restall Gailor gets the other one. Or even if you don't have the Persona ride, well, guess what? Freaking Compositive Freaks over here will get you that grade 3 back into soul. So not bad at all. Get you hand cards, get you soul, get you a rear guard kill to help pressure down your opponent. So not a bad 3 of. That though, that's one's at 3 because we want to show off our new important card at 4, who has really great synergy with Magnus because essentially it was made specifically to be used with Magnus, nothing else. Demonic Jewel Dragon Geo Draw. That is my one gripe with Geo Draw, is that you can't use it with Ignis. I mean, you can use its first skill with Ignis and its second half of its second skill, but you can't use like the skill that matters, quote unquote, which is kind of annoying, but that just is how it is. So grade 3 10% or 13k base, auto put on guard circle, choose a grade 3 card to Drajeweled in this card name from your ride deck, and you may reveal it. If you revealed a card or your Vanguard's already a grade 3 Drajeweled in the card name, gets 5,000 shield for the battle. How I wish this thing had intercept, because that would have won me a game, but you know what, fair enough, that's my bad for being a little bit more aggressive than I should have. Though to be fair, that was also the game where if I 5 aggroed my opponent, I would have won, so you know, hindsight's 2020. But being a 5k shield is great. I wish it either had intercept or a little bit more shield, because Drajeweled does kind of struggle in that department, but it is what it is. And then continues if your Vanguard's a grade 3 Drajeweled in the card name, it gets all the following. So auto and puts on rear guard during your main phase from anywhere. You may soul charge 1, then energy blast 3 to choose a grade 3 card with a different card name from itself, because it would be able to proc itself because of how it's worded from its soul, call it to rear guard circle. So cool. And you get a free soul charge. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, if you're afraid of decking out, but you can still choose to energy blast 3, and if you don't soul charge, superior call, and you can choose to soul charge if you're not going to energy blast, which means either way it can benefit things like Brainwash Swirl or whatever is in your soul. Following that, auto rear guard was return when this unit attacks into a grade 3 graded unit, whether it's a Vanguard or rear guard. If your damage on has 4 more cards in it, this unit's drive becomes 2 for the battle. That is specifically the way because Magnus exists, and Magnus gives your rear guards drive checks. It's a good ability, don't get me wrong, but I really wish that this was made to work with Ignis as well, because Magnus is basically what she has been doing with new grade 3s, where if they have a grade 4 variant, they take what that grade 4 variant does and make it a little bit faster and change its skill a little bit, and that's basically what Magnus is in a glorified way, especially with the ability to give rear guards drive checks to mitigate the fact that it doesn't inherently have triple drive. But I really wish Geo Draw worked better with Ignis, but that's just how it is. 4 of Geo Draw, I mean, it gets you rear guard pressure for an energy that you get every single turn, not to the fact that it possibly gets you a soul charge if you want it. It's a 5k shield, and it's literally just twin drive for free, considering Magnus has no cost to it whatsoever. So 4 of Geo Draw. Now onto what is literally the most cost efficient card in this deck, which is incredible to think about. Like, think about this for a second. The main grade 3 is incredibly cost efficient to where the only problem with it, in my opinion anyways, is that the first skill is restrictively specific to the ride phase, but to be fair with you, if it wasn't, this deck would be incredibly stronger than it should be. Demonic Jewel Dragon Emperor, Drajeweled Magnus, Grade 3, Twin Drive, Persona Ride, 13k base, Auto Vanguard at the beginning of your ride phase, choose 2 cards from your drop zone, put them to soul, literally verbatim, the exact same skill Ignis has during the start of the battle phase, except for the fact it doesn't get 15k. The reason why it does that is because Auto Vanguard at the beginning of your battle phase, if your soul has like any Drajeweled, it could be Magnus, it could be Mask, it could be OG Drajeweled, it could be the original trial deck Drajeweled, it could be Ignis. Your entire front row gets 5,000 power. While Ignis would give the front row 15, the reason why Magnus gives 5 is similar to how other cards work, specifically the Kyrie run, is where it's implying that you are going to Persona Ride, so that if you don't go to Ignis, you're still getting the same power up anyways, because think about it, you already get the 5k from Magnus skill, your Persona Ride is 15, if you had just gone straight into Ignis, you get inherently 15 in total, instead of having to do 2 separate effects. So it's weaker overall if you don't Persona Ride, but if you Persona Ride, it's going to do the exact same skill. Following that, Auto Vanguard, when it attacks into a Vanguard by soul blasting 4 cards of differing grades, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards. Until end of turn's power becomes 0. So it took Ignis' ability to create power to 0. I specify that because the other 3 Drajeweleds made it power become 1, so that did affect guarding a little bit, so this helps out a lot. And if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, it's an extra critical. So that ability has retained the same, that the opponent does have to be a grade 3 or greater. If this effect increases the critical, and your damage has 4 more cards in it, or you just rid of Persona Road, choose one of your rear guards with Demonic Jewel Dragon in the card name. So either itself, Geo Draw, Restall, Gailor, or any other Drajeweld, because those are the only Demonic Jewel Dragons that exist for this deck. You give it the skill, auto rear guard once per turn. When this unit attacks on anything, ditch a hand card, so basically your drive check. This unit's drive becomes 1, it performs drive checks in the battle until end of turn, or you give it to Geo Draw and you basically do Twin Drive. It's not a bad skill. The 5k ends up activating regardless of what grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, so again, you could do double Lizard Grease out on opponent's grade 2 Vanguard and hopefully go for lethal there. The Soul Blast 4 skill is literally the exact same as all the other Drajewelds and is literally the only cost printed on this card because the discard technically doesn't matter because you get it from the drive check anyways, but cool. My one gripe with this card is that during the skill for the extra crit and drive checks, you can pull that off when your opponent's on grade 3, meaning if you willingly go to 4 with Drajeweled, you can pull that off on your first grade 3 turn and have quadruple drive with double crit pressure on your opponent's 0 power Vanguard. You shouldn't do that, however, especially with this deck, because this deck struggles to keep defense power up and will most likely die unless you specifically sacked in your PGs. However, it's a very solid grade 3 all around. What a lot of people hate about this card, though, weirdly enough, isn't that. It's the fact that it requires a Drajeweled in Soul, so half the time you're losing either an Ignis if you're playing the Ignis variant, which most people do, or you lose your Persona right into Soul just to mitigate that 5k. Either way, though, being able to add 5k to your front row is great, especially because it procs off whether your opponent's at grade 3 or not. Being able to drop your opponent's power down to 0, again, is great because just Ignis but faster, and it has the ability to get crit pressure and quadruple drive, essentially, if your opponent's going first and they're at grade 3 already, and you're willing to go to 4 damage with it. And more importantly, it can literally just pull any 2 cards from your drop zone for free into Soul, basically guaranteeing that if you have the Persona Ride and Compositive Freaks, you're probably pulling off your skill one way or another that turn. So I love having Drajeweled Magnus in the deck as a 3 of in the main deck and 1 in the red, especially because, again, he has no cost to any of his skill outside of the general Soul Blast 4, which at this point is more of a benefit than a minus. And without further ado, this is for this one, I hope you enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is very fun to play. I like the aesthetic of the deck. Like, the flames of the dragons have come out more. I like the fact that all the Radland has evolved. I love how they're a little bit more demonic looking than their other halves that were more like just bright card looking. I like how Michiru's deck does genuinely feel like an Emperor deck, but also in the anime, because this deck feels so underwhelming in real life, it's even more impressive when Michiru wins with it because of how he strategized with the deck. And I love how you can somehow consistently run both Rockagore and Lizard at max copies in this variant. By the way, in my personal list, I still run them at max copy with Bifrons in the deck, and even then, unless I, weirdly enough, overuse Bifron specifically, the deck still doesn't have a CV problem. Keep that in mind. Either way, though, that's it for this one. I hope all of you guys enjoyed. If you guys are looking forward to the Ignis specific build, go ahead and click on the video that was probably somewhere at the start of this video. So I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join our Twitch, and don't forget to sign up your Vanguards.